This is a guide to using the Cycle learning plan. Okay, as you can see, it's a fairly straightforward layout in comparison with the visual learning plan that we have. You'd probably want to start with the first box, which is detailing teacher name, course, day and time. You may want to include in there class size and any other sort of specific details about the course that you're teaching on. Especially if it's a short course or perhaps project-based learning, you might like to say how many weeks are involved in the particular lesson surrounding that. Okay, the next best place to start in any lesson plan is the learning outcomes. The reason you should start with learning outcomes is that you need to be thinking about what the student's actually going to achieve from the lesson, because all your activities and resources will hang from that. In an ideal world, you'll have 3 learning outcomes, and again, these will all be things that the students will be able to leave with. So starting with students will be able to, okay, is a really good place to start. Therefore, avoiding words like know or understand is quite a good idea, because it's going to be really difficult for you to measure whether they've understood something. However, you will be able to know whether they're able to apply something in a particular situation because you've seen them do it in the lesson. Okay, so that's the idea behind the learning outcomes. We do say 3 for each lesson. However, you may like to use more, particularly if you are doing a project-based learning approach, because your lessons might be spanning a number of weeks, and therefore your learning outcomes might have commonality across those weeks, and therefore you want more for your students to achieve. In any standard lesson, it would be quite difficult for your students to achieve any more than 3. There are more tips about writing learning outcomes and strategies for achieving this on the Planning for Learning website. Okay, now around the outside of this plan, you have each of the aspects of the learning cycle. So you have connect, share, present, apply, and recall and review. Now in each of those boxes, you should really be detailing the process behind the activity. So why you want them to be doing that activity, what the teacher will be doing, what the students will be doing during that activity, and just details about what's going on in that activity. So for example, they're going to be working in groups, they might be working in pairs. Are they going to be working in mixed ability groups, or have you already decided those groups? Really, it's just the thinking behind the activities. Now clearly there's an obvious positive if your lesson is being observed and you've explained the thinking behind activities. They can see where you're going with something. It's still very valuable even if you aren't being observed, because it helps you to think about why you're doing something in a particular way, and perhaps it will get you to reevaluate and do it in a different way because it's not quite achieving what you needed to achieve in the lesson. Okay, so in those boxes you need to be detailing your activities and the thinking behind them. Okay, you then might like to shoot over to the learning shopping list. This is basically a resources list, so everything you'll need to go into your lesson. Observers often say that teachers have been seen to be going out of the lesson or saying to students that they forgot to bring something in, and so they'll have to do without it. This kind of shopping list will just ensure that you have everything necessary for your lesson in advance, and you can take it all in with you and be fully prepared. Okay, in the middle you're given a reminder of all the other aspects that you might be wanting to include in your lesson. All we'll be asking is that in each of the stages of the learning cycle, you've written E&M, E&D, ILT, etc. next to any aspect of your lesson plan that includes that element, okay? Just flagging it up to yourself and any observers that is being included in that part of the lesson, okay? In any lesson, ideally, we'd like to see at least one instance of each of these things. However, it's more than possible that if you are taking the same class over the week on a number of occasions, those elements might come in different lessons and not in all of them. You should absolutely try and hit stretch and challenge, English and maths, and technology in each of your lessons, and the others are an ideal working throughout the week. Okay, so they should be seen at least once a week. Safe working practices are obviously relevant for some areas and not for others, so only include those if relevant. Okay, in the middle box we've got check learning, develop higher order thinking skills and measure progress. Those are reminders for you for the key things that you should be doing in every single lesson. So just check that you've got enough opportunities throughout the lesson to check their learning, check their progress. Are you questioning them? Are you doing something a little bit more adventurous in terms of assessment? And again, have a look on the Planning for Learning site for more ideas about how you can do that. Developing higher order thinking skills and measuring progress are all on the Planning for Learning site. So if you're not quite sure how to embed that successfully in your lesson, take a look there and have a look. Okay, so this was an overview about what needed to be included in each box and how the lesson plan for the cycle lesson plan has been put together. If there are any areas where you're not quite sure what this lesson plan is going to look like, we have created some annotated versions so that you can see successful and unsuccessful lesson plans, just to see where you what exactly you should be aiming for. Okay, so that's the cycle learning plan. If you'd like to look at any of the others, there is a video for each of the other templates.